morning. This is the Blaine's World webcast. They can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You get more information and find out about past shows at our website, which is behind me, blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce, I think, one of the most positive guys I know, and he is Tod Leaven. And Tod Leaven, first of all, you can wave to all your friends on who are watching. Okay, and that's Tod Leaven. And Tod Leaven moved to Asheville back in 1985. He has since moved away from time to time when he was in the Army, law school, a job, but always came back. He's now married with 3 daughters. He's an attorney and a partner in his new law firm, Leaven Law Firm, PLLC. His wife is his law partner, and his oldest daughter is the receptionist. He's also an adjunct law professor at UNC School of Law. And in addition, Tod, we were talking about this off the air, you're an actor of sorts as well. Yes. And the only thing I forgot to ask you, but I'll ask you now, is I don't see in the background, but I don't see your roller skates in terms of getting around like all these places. You know, it seems like you keep busy.
Yes. So what I found is this to being able to do as much that I do is that I'm blessed with an incredibly patient and supportive wife.
Okay. And I guess you also don't sleep a lot?
Correct, right.
Okay. I mean, I just don't know how you do all the stuff you do. And since we mention it, I'll start off from the one thing I know you from as an actor, you know, and for a bunch of years you were acting in local theater. I guess in a way you're going to be cutting back on that a little bit now because of some of the things you're doing.
Correct. So I have since my first play was winter of 2019, where me and my now 15-year-old daughter, who my 15-year-old daughter Eleanor is the real actor in the family. I'm her supporting role, but we were both in Miracle on 34th Street at ACT. And every year since then, we've been in at least one play side by side. We've done a ton of Shakespeare. We've done stuff all over from Tryon to Montford Park Players. This year was the first year that her and I did not share the stage, but we were just in a short film that was directed by Missy Bell, who's phenomenal. And I think I actually just recently saw her on one of your podcasts. Her short film, Outbound, both Elle and I are in. So that's great. I'm thinking next year with the campaign, I probably won't get to do any acting, but I am still on the board of directors of the Montford Park Players, and I'm on the board of trustees for the Asheville Chamber of Music series. So I'm still very involved and supportive of the performing arts, even though I might not be front and center on a stage or behind the camera.
But so as you indicated, hopefully after the campaign and hopefully if you win the election, then maybe you'll have a little time to again perform, but even that'll probably be tough.
Yes, I hope for a little bit. It's the performing arts, well, and I think a lot of people in Asheville share this view. The performing arts, actually all of the arts, your visual arts, your performing arts, your literary arts, they're incredibly important, and they make Asheville kind of one of the unique spots that it is. And so I would love to be as involved as I can be. But of course, anytime that I'm on city council, that is going to be time, of course, that I'm not on the stage. But I think at least for 4 years, it's a worthy trade.
Let's talk about, since we mentioned it, the performing arts in Asheville. And it would seem to me, even though we'll talk about your campaign a little bit later, but it seems to me that's something that Asheville could really use more, I guess, a performing arts center or space. We don't seem to have it. Is that just my imagination?
No, funny you should say that, but we don't. Greenville, South Carolina has, and it made the Peace Center is great. Right. Durham is great. The Tanger Center in Greensboro, phenomenal, brings in a ton of revenue. Now, of course, Asheville doesn't have a lot of the industry that these other cities have that can help foot the bill of such a performing arts center, but absolutely the performing arts need more kind of investment, or investiture is the word to go for. The city should provide, even at minimum, like a multiple stage theater space where many of our many nonprofits could hold free rehearsals. Like something as easy as that would be a huge boon, preferably something large enough, like it doesn't have to be quite on the scale of DPAC or the Peace Center, but some form of performing arts center that once built, the city actually maintains so that it can remain in service. Yes.
And one of the shames, I guess, in Asheville too, is what we have is also in need of repair. The big big center is in bad shape, right? The symphony orchestra, lots of places have had to move away because they don't have a place to perform anymore. So hopefully that'll be something that will come on board. What made you decide to want to become elected official?
So great question. I've toyed around with the idea for multiple years. It was really, I found myself at the beginning of this year with the bandwidth. So I have it, especially with the transition to the new law firm, like you said, that frees up a lot of time. My 15-year-old daughter going off into high school, and she was actually playing varsity team on her basketball team. She's on the varsity team, so that's huge. So she's gotten out of acting, which has gotten me out of acting a little bit. With my law practice toning down, I had time and bandwidth. So of course, I think that's important. I think a lot of times people with really busy schedules have the best of intentions, but I think that city council is more of a full-time job, and you have to actually have the time to devote to it. The issues that our city is facing right now, which I think are typical growing pains. I actually like to, I'll go back soon about what Asheville was like in the 80s and the 90s, which I think a lot of people forget how unsafe Asheville was, and how the issues with drugs, the issues with the unhoused, the issues with crime, I think were significantly worse than they are now. And I'm throwing that in to say that I don't think Asheville's in a period of a great downturn that I think a lot of people believe that it is. But I think that Asheville does have certain unique growing pains now, and I think they just happen to line up with a lot of my, I want to say expertise, but a lot of my passions and experiences. Like for example, we are having a crisis with the unhoused. Okay, that affects my family very deeply. Back in 2000, actually it was November 26, 2010, my twin sister died here in Asheville. She was on the streets. She was unhoused, and the effect that had, not only upon me, but especially upon her daughter and my parents, was profound. Because I hear different solutions, different people talking about how are we going to solve the problem with the homeless and stuff, and a lot of them view either the unhoused as problems instead of viewing them as actual people. And a lot of other people view them as, well, as long as we just throw a bunch of money and and enable them, then the problem will just take care of itself. But having had the unhoused crisis affect my my very poor family, it's kind of a passion of mine. When I first started practicing law back with my prior law firm, Grimes, Tyche Anderson, I started a free legal clinic for homeless veterans. And I've been running that clinic, pretty solidly for going on 10 years now. And it's always been something that I've wanted to address. And it just so happens that is an issue that a lot of people in Asheville want to address. So I just bring that up as one of the many issues that are facing our city. Our crime, a lot of concerned. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, the tough thing I think I imagine with the unhoused or the people needing housing is everybody talks about it, but nobody, one, wants to do too much about it, or two, they don't want to do it in their backyard, i.e. in even a deserted hotel. Can you imagine? What a great concept, to put people into a hotel that's not being used. Yet there was a lot of resistance on that, right? And still is.
Well, there is, and so I've thought a lot about that there, and it's kind of a derogatory term, but NIMBYism,
Right.
my backyard. And I think some of it might be due to when people move to Asheville, they have the snapshot of what this city is on like the day or the afternoon that they move in. And any change, any deviation from that snapshot is a degradation. It's no, this is not the Asheville that I love. I want Asheville to look like 1995, because that's when I fell in love with Asheville and decided to move. So I think you're always going to go against that. And I also think a lot of it is just, it's a lack of and I don't think it's really justified, but a lack of trust in the city government, that if we let the city develop in my backyard, or if we let the city run this, or if we let the city do something that could go wrong, but it could go right, the people don't really trust that it's going to be run well, and therefore it's good, and I'll support it. It just needs to be done in East Asheville, unless you live in East Asheville.
Well, I read another idea, and you probably know about it, or you may have even had the idea, but some people say also, what are great opportunities for malls, especially deserted malls, to convert them, can you imagine, into housing units for the homeless, or I've also heard for veterans. You take the whole Sears complex, and that's still deserted, right? They're not doing anything with it yet, or they're talking about it, but nothing's being built. Could that have been done?
So that is, and I'm trying to choose my words just because I don't want them taken out of context, because there are many, many sides to this. One side is people naturally are going to go down the path of least resistance. I know it's because now I do veterans law, so I'm in front of a very large, probably one of the largest federal administrative agencies that this country has. And the way that you successfully navigate it is through the path of least resistance. And so you just learn that if you give people an out to do something, like give money, okay, I'll contribute money to this nonprofit, I'll sign this petition. It's a very easy job for people to do. It takes 2 seconds. You write a check or you sign a petition or whatever. That's easy. Curing issues, you can't cure them, but addressing issues such as the unhoused is not easy. You can't throw money at it. You can't just sign a petition. It takes a lot of work, and it not just takes a lot of work from people who are going to be administering these programs, but also the other stakeholders, like the people that live around the mall. I mean, and so you have to do the hard work, and the hard work is sitting down with all the stakeholders. You are the neighbors. You are affected by this. You are the business owners. You are the workers. You are this. You have to get everyone's feedback and everyone's take to find a situation that can be a win-win across the board as much as possible. It's easy to say, well, this consultant said we have to do A, so let's throw all our cash. Oh, we're good people. It's all solved, but that's not going to solve it. You have to do the hard work of actually sitting down. And it's a lot like, so before I did veterans law, I did homeowners association law. Okay. And the reason why I did it and actually did quite well in this, because no other attorney in the area wanted to do what I was doing. And that was, I would go in with defective boards. I say defective in as the same way that like
right.
a parent looks at their kids and says, "Oh, what are you doing?" Boards that aren't functioning well, and I would try to find some common goal that everyone has to just get the board rowing in the same direction. Sometimes it took hours. It was hard work, but that board would never work properly unless someone took the time to actually find out what it was that could be done to get everyone playing on the same team. And I think it's going to take that type of work where it's grueling and it's unpopular and no one wants to do it, but you have to do it. And you have to do it with good messaging. Otherwise, at least half the people in any given situation are going to feel like they're taken advantage of, or they won't listen to. Like, you have to do it. You have to lead with love, but you got to lead, if that makes sense, Blaine.
And like I said, I can relate too, because I was on a board for 6 years, a homeowners board, and it was it was an interesting experience. But I guess if you can bring those skills to city council, would be phenomenal, because again, what I sometimes say, Todd, is that there are 2 sides to every argument, if not a lot more. So some people think everything's just black and white, but it's not. And there's so many aspects of it. So housing is the one that obviously is going to be on your plate. Also talk about the other one that everybody talks about, of course, is crime in the city, is it worse than it was 15, 20 years ago, or what's your call on that?
Okay, so again, that's a great question. I think it's difficult to address in a black and white type of answer. I would say in general, no, it is not worse than it was before. I think beforehand, a lot of the crime was relegated to certain neighborhoods. And I think a lot more now, it is not so much. And probably one of the reasons why is because a lot of those private neighborhoods are now being gentrified. I mean, so you have a lot of crossover and exposure to crime that just didn't have. Or if you had it back in 85, no one cared because it wasn't going on in their backyard. Okay. And when I say no one cared, that's a callous response, but just in one of those out of sight, out of mind type of thing. I remember in 85, if you went to North Lexington Avenue, I mean, after 5 o'clock, there wasn't anything there but like cracking hookers. I mean, and then now it's really like high-end boutique shops and great restaurants. So it is definitely, the city itself has developed. I don't think it's developed with as much equity as it could, but I think we're in a spot right now that if we take time, and because it's going to grow and there's nothing that we are going to do. The cat is out of the bag. Asheville is going to continue to grow. I think, especially with housing, if we find a way to let people in Asheville know that it's okay to, and I don't want to say develop because development is kind of a dirty word.
Right.
We're not going to cure the affordable housing issue unless we build more housing. We can't, and it doesn't have to be the huge apartment buildings. I think the missing middle approach is a great approach. We're going to have to build somewhere, building downtown in a way that's sustainable and equitable, and you get a higher population density with the logistics to allow it to happen. I think we'll make it more of a multimodal type of city, which is in our city development plan that we came up with back in 2018. I think it'll be more pedestrian city. I think the buzzword is activated. I think that can happen if we can find a way to ally people's fears that the only people who win when we do more development is the developers. Because I don't believe that. I think it's a false narrative. I think we need community buy-in, but I think if we do it, we can help address the unhoused. We can help address the fact that there's no workforce housing at all. The fact that people cannot afford to live in the city that they serve is abhorrent. It's terrible. So that was not the case in Asheville in the 80s. As Asheville kind of broke out into the national scene, when I was at an opera, that this was multiple years ago in New York, and every person who I sat in my row, they go, "Oh, you're from Asheville?" I'm in New York. How do you know about Asheville? But because of that, I mean, we're going to grow, and we're going to grow in ways where we are attracting people with a serious amount of money from Boston and New York, in Miami. And if we don't have the housing stock to house all of these people, no one who lives here is going to be able to afford to continue to live here.
And that ties into the issue we started talking about as well with public safety. Again, we're going to need more police officers, but that's, I don't know if you've thought a lot. I mean, you've thought a lot about it, I'm sure, but that's a real problem as well. That first of all, police officers can't afford to live in the city or, anywhere near. And then, but the other problem, Todd, I don't know the solution, is how do you find the police officers, or how do we staff, police force?
Okay, so there is a billboard on 240 and going out towards West Asheville. I believe it's right before you hit exit 2, that it's advertising for police department in Georgia.
Okay, right.
And it says, okay, come here. These are our benefits. These are our salaries. And I mean, they are offering a lot more money than we are here in Asheville. I mean, do I think our police department needs to be paid more? Absolutely. Absolutely. Do we need more people in uniform? Absolutely. Do I think our teachers need to be paid more? Our nurses need to be paid more? Absolutely, yes. And now a greater way to raise those type of revenues is higher density housing will generate significantly more tax revenue per acre than single family homes. Am I against single family homes? Absolutely not. But I think there is a way that we can go forward and we can address a lot of these concerns. But, and then this is really important, it has to be done with not advice and consent. We have to bring in all of the stakeholders together, because if we leave anyone out, if we don't listen to anyone, we're not actually going to get to a lasting and sustainable solution, if that makes sense.
And talk about the solution. Another idea I know you promote and believe in, but it's part of the problem also, is not only do we have to get stakeholders together, we also have to get both political parties, together. And I don't get it, but we all should be on the same page, So everything you're saying, and the nice thing I hear you saying, we're not talking about whether you're Democrat or Republican or independent third party. It's just we should all want for a better Asheville. But I don't know why that's so hard to achieve.
And I'm embarrassed that it took me going through almost 6 years in the Army to learn this lesson, but being able to work with anyone and everyone on a team for a mutual goal is a blessing. And the fact that anyone would sit back and say, well, I'm not going to work with him because of the color of his skin, or I'm not going to work with her because of the God that she worships, or the fact that she doesn't, or I'm not going to talk to him because of his political party. I mean, I don't care about these folks because of their sexual orientation. To me, it's terrible. It doesn't matter. If someone is willing to talk to you to make Asheville a better place, you need to listen. And this is the thing. So I believe that with governance is not ruling. It's not me telling, Asheville, these are the answers to your problems. It's serving. And you cannot serve if you're unwilling to listen to your constituents. So I don't care if someone's a Republican. I don't care if what color they are, what God they worship, who they're in love with. I mean, any of that stuff, I don't care. I will work with and listen to anyone if I think it makes Asheville a better place. And I think in general, Asheville is a very inclusive town. And I think in general, we get that with many aspects. I think one aspect that we fail is the political spectrum, where I can't tell you the probably, I'm gonna say complaint, but caution, the red flags, the number one red flag that people comment, oh, Todd, you can't hang out with so-and-so. I was in a fight with them at the Christmas party, and I'm like, listen, I don't care. Yes, I know so-and-so is a Republican, but the fact that I'm talking to him does not make me a Republican. I mean, like and I'll have friends, because I'm a vet. I have some conservative friends, and they'll call, like, if you hang out with so-and-so, Antifa. And I'm like, I'm not Antifa. I'm just not an idiot. I mean, and I care about Asheville. And you need to get out. You need to leave your comfort zone. You need to leave your echo chamber and actually cross the aisle, cross the street, go to a neighborhood you usually don't hang out in, and actually listen and talk to people, because that's the only way we're going to come up with a solution that I think fits the entire city. Because we are a very diverse city. We just don't know it because we tend to hang out with just people who are exactly like us.
I haven't attended it, but I have it kind of on my list to attend one of those sessions where they bring, different people together. You've seen the groups, and they get them talking. There, what I'm talking about. There are you familiar? Have you ever heard it? They bring different groups together, and they have meetings, and they train them.
Heard of, and it's a good, especially I've worked with a ton of nonprofits. That's just general good governance, and there's definitely workshops that do that, but I don't know if that's specifically what you're talking about or not.
I think so. It's just a shame. It's the whole idea of, you're saying, bringing everybody together and trying to listen, which is, not always the easiest thing in the world. Talk about your campaign then, Todd. So you decided, a couple months ago, to run for office?
I think early March is when I crossed the threshold. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. Yeah.
Was the one deciding thing that caused you to step forward?
So I actually, going back to plays, I just finished Dollhouse with Shakespeare. Phenomenal play. I was camping in my camper with my then 9-year-old daughter. This is my youngest daughter, Abigail, and with her best friend and her best friend's dad. We went down to the beach in South Carolina, and me and him were just sitting chit-chatting. He's a cop. He's been under the Asheville Police Department for like 23 or 24 years now. And we're just kind of talking about Asheville and things going. And he looked at me, he's like, Todd, you really need to run. And I'm like, you know what? I will. And I said, okay. And that's when I made up my mind.
And so what does that entail then? You formed a campaign staff and then you just on what happens?
Yeah. So I went, well, excuse me, actually one of the person that did what was I called my law partner at the time, Anna Hamrick, who's now my treasurer. And I called her and I asked her if she'd be my treasurer, and she said yes, of course, because she's great and incredibly supportive. And then slowly, as the months went on, talked to people about who's going to run my website, who's going to do my social media and stuff. I actually don't have, and it's so funny because I get grief for I still don't have a campaign manager. So you could say I have an idiot for a campaign manager, but I have a lot of great advisors, which helps a lot.
So how many for the election then? Isn't the primary isn't until when?
It's in March.
March. So it's coming up, I guess, in a little bit. And how many city council, how many openings are there when the election takes place?
3 seats are going to be open. So it is the seats that are currently occupied by Sandra Kilgore, Sage Turner, and Kim Roney. So, and I don't believe, and I hope I'm not wrong, but I don't believe any of them have officially announced if they're running for re-election or if they're going to be running for a different election. But I know that all 3 of those are going to be the 3 seats that are open. So it's actually this next few weeks, I believe it's from December 4th to December 15th. I might be off. I think that's the time period to actually file. So anyone who's going to be filing to say, hey, I'm officially running is going to have to file during that window. As soon as December 15th passes, then you can no longer file to run. On the first week of March is when we're going to have our primaries. That's going to shrink the pool down to 6 candidates. So the 6, so it's nonpartisan. So it won't show if you're Republican or independent or Democrat. Just the top 6 vote getters after the primary will then go on to the general election that November of 2024, and the top 3 vote getters of that election will then become our 3 new people of city council.
Interesting. So it's nonpartisan. How come?
Because it's smart.
It is, yeah.
I say it's nonpartisan. I don't know. I think maybe Carl Mumpar was the last Republican, I think, to ever win a seat. It is Asheville, so this is definitely a Democrat-heavy city. But I like the fact that it's nonpartisan because it should be like it really doesn't. Whether you have an I, a D, or an R next to your name does not talk about your capability to actually effectively serve.
So if folks want to get involved in your campaign or find out more about you, what's the best bet?
I would go to my website. It is Tod Leaven for Asheville. So that's TODLEAVEN, the number 4 Asheville.com. That is my website. From that website, you can have a link to my Facebook page. And there's a link if you want to volunteer or donate or anything. It's all contained nicely on that website. And on that, the website has a lovely picture of my family and both of our dogs.
And I assume, as you said, that you can get involved in different ways, can involve from a contribution standpoint. But the thing about that is that the more people come forward, you welcome more people on board, I assume. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay. And exciting stuff, Tod. I can't believe you're doing this. People probably say that to you all the time, but I thank you for doing it because it's almost like, and you may or may not agree with it, but it's kind of a thankless task. It's not.
So I recently had lunch actually with Bo Hess, who is a really nice guy. He's also running for city council. And I think he put it most succinctly and eloquently when he said, a lot of people think that running for public office is a popularity contest, and they do it to make friends and become popular. And he's like, it is the opposite. It's like it'll crush you. You will feel worse about yourself the more you because the more you'll hear, oh, you can't do that. What do you think you're doing? Oh, that's not the right answer. And it's true. I mean, it's important. It's really good work, and I can't think of a better city to do it for than here in Asheville. But yes, it is. Not only thankless, but it's almost the opposite of being thanked. It's but it's good. It builds character, and if I can go through multiple theaters of combat, I should be good to go here.
And again, I thank you for doing so, because if you and this other person don't come forward, where are we? So somebody has to come forward. So my philosophy, and I'll thank you, but unfortunately for me, I can't even vote for you. Is that correct? I'm in Fairview, so I can't vote for you.
It has to, so this is just inside, it's a citywide election. It's non-districted, which means that all members of city council are at large. So it's not like the county where you have Buncombe County District 1, 2, 2, and 3, and it's those districts that vote. So it's anyone in the city can vote for any of the candidates,
But I'm out
regardless.
of luck because I'm not in the city. Is that correct? In Fairview is not in the city?
Correct.
Yeah, so I can't vote for you, but I would, Todd. So next time around, when you run for something else, count on my vote.
No, so that is something that my wife has definitely said, Todd. I mean, she's the most patient and supportive woman that I know. But she's definitely asked me, is this a start of something big? And I tell her no. I'm not going to leave Asheville. I can do it because it's here. It's home. I have no desire to go to Raleigh. I definitely have no desire to go to Washington D.C. This is it. I'm just a local man.
Okay. Well, anyway, we're very grateful to have you as a local man. Todd, it's always a pleasure speaking to you, and I look forward to bumping into you sometime in the near future, man. Thanks, man.
Thank you so much, Blaine.